A political leader is a person who claims to know what to do and where to go. The leader is saying to us, I know the solutions to our social problems. Follow me. I will lead you in the right direction. If he is wrong and he leads us off a cliff, it is our neck that will break. Thus, it behooves us to examine his claim. Let's find out if our leaders actually know what they're talking about. You're going to see political leaders full of absurd conclusions and contradictions. Worse, they are either unwilling or unable to reason. And when they are required to reason about their conclusions, they get angry, insult, threaten, and even attack. Could you explain to the viewers that, and
look, Jan,
to me at the same time, how it is that we become more wealthy by incurring in $2 or $3 trillion debts?
Jan, I think
this year.
I think this interview's come to an end. Someday, when you shut up and you want to talk about something, let's talk.
Well, let's change the subject. No, let's just change the subject.
We're done.
Let's talk about.
Get out of here.
Let's just change the subject. We can talk about something else.
Listen, you get the fuck out of here. I'll throw you out the window. Out.
Can people like this find the solutions to our problems? Congressman Pete Stark thinks that the larger the national debt, the wealthier we are.
So the idea that the national debt makes any difference is preposterous.
But you don't think that it's, what the national debt is important? Doesn't that mean that the larger the national debt, don't we have to pay more interest?
The wealthier we are.
The larger the national debt, the wealthier we are?
It's an indication of the wealth of the country, you're right.
So the more you owe, the more you're worth?
In federal account, in the national scheme of things, that's quite right.
So why shouldn't we borrow another $1 trillion then next year?
Probably
so we can become wealthy.
If we should not necessarily borrow another $1 trillion, but we will. No wonder our national debt is skyrocketing. Some congressmen think our enormous debt is making us wealthier. Senator Harry Reid thinks we are not forced to pay taxes. He thinks taxes are voluntary. Watch. If the government is in the business of forcefully taking money from some people in order to provide welfare benefits to others, how will the people whose money is being taken feel about the government?
Well, I don't accept your phraseology. I don't think we force people.
Taxation is not forceful?
Well, no.
It's voluntary?
In fact, quite to the contrary. Our system of government is a voluntary tax system.
Oh, if you don't want to pay your taxes, you don't have to?
Oh, of course you have to pay your taxes. But
well, the government will force you to pay, or they'll fine you or imprison you.
We have a voluntary system. The fact of the matter is that if when you pay your taxes, see, in many other countries it's not voluntary. For example, in many countries, the government makes sure that your employer takes out every penny. Many countries don't file income tax returns.
We have withholding here too, don't we?
Pardon me?
Withholding?
With some programs, yes. But I'm talking about in some countries, European countries as an example, you don't file an income tax return. There is no need to, because your employer takes all the money out. That's the difference between a voluntary and an involuntary system. You can't cheat and not pay your taxes.
Right.
But I don't accept your phraseology that you forcibly take money from somebody else and give it to
Can the taxpayer decide not to pay his taxes if he wants?
He can not pay his taxes if he wants.
What will happen?
He's subject to civil and criminal penalties.
They'll put him in jail. They use force against him. He pays. Everybody pays taxes under threat of jail or fine, under threat of force. In other words, you are forced to pay your taxes, whether you fill out your form voluntarily or whether it's withheld by your employer. You don't have a choice on whether you can pay taxes that are going to be used for welfare programs. You can't make that choice.
Well, but the reason our system is called a voluntary tax system, and I recognize, that ultimately you can't cheat in your taxes, but we have many provisions in the law they don't have in most countries. We have deductibility for home, interest on mortgage payment. They don't have that in most countries. We have deductibility for certain excessive expenses as it relates to health, doctors, hospitals. We have all kinds of tax, some people call them loopholes, but others would call them incentives for people to do business. And that's why you're not forced to pay certain tax. There are ways, if you decide to buy a home.
You can decide not to pay taxes in the United States?
I mean, I really don't understand what you're trying to get at. What the point of the matter is...
Because you objected to my phraseology. You said that, you say that the government isn't forcefully taking money from some people to provide welfare benefits to others. And in fact, that's what it's doing, because all taxation is forceful. It's backed up by physical force. If you don't pay your taxes, the government will intervene with you forcefully. So you don't have a choice. It's not voluntary. You can't decide not to pay and not suffer a consequence. If you don't pay, you'll go to jail.
Well,
so you're forced to pay.
You don't go to jail. Some people go to jail. There are all kinds of civil penalties. If you don't pay your tax, you pay interest and you pay penalties. The fact of the matter is, our system is a voluntary system.
Maybe this explains why he is not reluctant to raise our taxes. Senator Reid isn't the only one who thinks taxes are voluntary. Congressman Helfeld agrees.
Because people aren't forced to pay taxes.
Some congressmen will not be persuaded, but instead will make preposterous arguments in defense of a mistaken position. For instance, when Congressman Tucker tried to defend the exclusion of white congressmen from the Congressional Black Caucus, he found himself arguing that the Ku Klux Klan was not racist. Oh, you don't agree with that?
Secondly,
oh, you should have said so.
No. I said, as a general proposition, that's what it is. Secondly, you should remember when I talk, because I did say that as it relates to private organizations, that you cannot analogize that necessarily with employment situations, because everybody knows that people have a right of freedom of association. If the Black Caucus, or even if just some members of black people,
white supremacists can get together if they want.
They can get together and have the KKKs. Is that racism?
Yes, it is.
Me to come in? Oh, come on. And then the other thing I think, Jan, I wouldn't give a care. They can have their KKK meetings.
I don't care either, but it's racist.
How about Governor Bill Richardson, who thinks you can delegate a right you do not have?
If they don't have that right to initiate force, can they have properly delegated it to the government?
Well, if they choose to do that, sure.
Can you properly delegate a right that you do not have?
You mean, can you donate property to the government?
No. If you've agreed that the citizens don't have the right to initiate force against other citizens.
Right.
Can they, I ask you if they don't have that right, can they properly delegate it to the government? You have said yes. So now I'm asking you whether you can delegate a right that you do not have. Can you properly delegate a right that you do not have? Does that make sense?
I believe under the Constitution, a citizen must obey the laws of their government and their constitutional authority.
But so you think that you can delegate a right that you do not have?
Basically, yes.
Well, I don't have the right to use your home, right? Without your permission.
That's right.
Can I delegate it to my brother or to somebody else?
It's your individual choice.
I could delegate the right to use your home to somebody else? Does that make sense?
If you have a consensual agreement with that other person, it's that right.
Your home, I don't have a right to use your home, right? Can I delegate that right to somebody else if I don't have it? Don't you have to have the right in order to give it to somebody else?
You can't delegate the use of my home.
Right. So you cannot properly delegate a right that you do not have. You have to have it in order to delegate it. Is that not correct?
I have to go. I gotta go.
Our whole legal system is based on the principle that you cannot delegate rights you do not have. If this principle is removed, the whole legal system would collapse. Senator Inouye goes further. He thinks that armed robbers can properly attack other citizens if they are authorized to do so by the government.
Let me see if I understand your position. Basically, would you say that it's wrong for the citizens to initiate physical force against other citizens like an armed robber does?
Unless we permit
but
that
it's okay
by law.
It's okay for the government to do so.
Because the government has been authorized by the people.
Okay, but if the government authorized armed robbers to do it, it would be okay?
If the government is that foolish to do so, I don't know what kind of country that would be, but that's legal, and if it's constitutional, so